Welcome to episode 11 of the Casual Combat MMA Show. Like always, I got my co-host back with me after his week-long hiatus from last week. How you doing, Cal?
Great, missed it. Once again, coming off a tough Packers loss, so I'm hoping I can have high energy after missing a week. We'll see. I don't know. A little bit depressed this afternoon.
Yeah. So this past weekend, although it was not a highly touted card, we did have some bangers of fights. I admittedly did not get a chance to watch the undercard. I only watched the main card, so we'll be brief on our recap of what happened last night. But, Cal, you want to start us off? I know you want to talk about Kevin Holland.
Yeah, he's quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters. I like every time he fights, something else happens, and he was one who, when he beat Darren Stewart, told Dana that he didn't think he won that fight, and it should have been a draw. And after this fight, he was yelling at Izzy, and honestly, he looked good in the fight as well. I think that's his fourth win this year, and he says he wants to fight again.
Yep.
I think he's only won with 4, and I think he's won. I think he's 4-0 this year.
Yes.
So yeah, he's been fun to watch, to see him progress. And I know earlier in his career he had some losses, but most of the guys he lost to are legitimate studs, and now he's beating people. I'm excited for him to get a real, maybe a top 15 level opponent to see where he actually is at.
Yeah, I did notice that his takedown game was a little bit more efficient this time around. Not to say that he hasn't. He's had a few takedowns interspersed in his fights this year, but got 2 big ones, 2 big slams on a guy that clearly I thought maybe had him a little bit outclassed on his feet. I mean, the guy was like a Taekwondo black belt, and clearly it was his UFC debut. He was crying when he got in there. He was all emotional. But clearly he was a one-trick pony, had no idea what to do on the ground, and it was smart of Kevin Holland to recognize that and take him to the ground, even though he is not a ground guy either, right? I think no. Kevin Holland's style is kung fu, so it's like – but it's interesting to see a kung fu style guy take it to the ground and win via slam.
Yeah, I liked the verbal submission.
Yeah.
Verbal tap out.
Yeah.
Does that just mean you say ow loud enough?
Yeah. Did we ever find out? Did we ever get a checkup on that guy's neck?
No. Kevin Holland wasn't concerned with his neck at all.
No.
He's more concerned with Izzy being in the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. He's a fun character. I like that he's staying active, and I'm excited to get some more Kevin Holland fights.
Yeah, absolutely. The next fight on the docket that we wanted to talk about was Greg Hardy.
Stud.
I disagree.
He's a real fighter. That's what I think. Before I agreed with you, I watched his fight with Volkov. I remember thinking, wow, none of these guys are that good. But Volkov's battled Blades now for 5 rounds, and he just won. Was it last week? He had a big win?
Yeah, Volkov beat the big ticket.
Yes. But Greg Hardy can battle with some of the best guys in the UFC, and he hasn't been doing that for this long.
I think that you know that he cannot battle with some of the best guys in the UFC.
Okay, he can't. But
right.
I don't think he can beat Stipe. I don't think. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
I don't think he can even last a round with Curtis Blades. There's no way.
Yeah, you probably can't give him someone that can take him down.
The only way that Greg Hardy could beat anybody, in my opinion, that has any worth in the heavyweight division is if he caught him with an overhand flying right in the first 25 seconds of a fight. Like, I know that you were impressed with Greg Hardy. I thought he looked like shit. Like, it looked like he did not know how to fight, and that he was just like that was it.
I understand that is how he is.
Yeah, I understand that that's all you need to beat some of these heavyweights in the UFC. Now, again, who am I? I'm a casual bum that's never fought before. But I think in the heavyweight division, you've got some guys that just can't match the physical output of other guys. And I think Greg Hardy is a very bad version of Francis Ngannou.
That's fair.
Like, but no technique, raw power.
What would the odds be if Greg Hardy right now would fight Alistair Overeem?
Overeem would be a minus 300 favorite.
No, I don't think so. Come
on, man. There's no way.
What if Greg Hardy hits him? He hits so hard.
Alistair Overeem is an elite striker and understands how not to get hit.
Pillow chin.
Oh my goodness. No. There's no
Dan Greg Hardy.
Sorry, I thought I heard the door.
Was Greg in there, did you think?
No, Greg's knocking on my door. Greg Hardy could not beat Walt Harris right now. Not even close. I think 0 chance.
Maybe.
And that's the hill I'm going to die on. I am not on the Greg Hardy train.
One thing he's got to do, though, is make weight at heavyweight.
Yeah, he won't miss weight. I mean, I love how everybody was freaking out. He was like a half pound over with an hour to go. Like, I don't think people understand how easy that is to lose.
Yeah.
Especially when he was clearly hydrated and hadn't been cutting weight and was surprised when he got on the scale overweight. Like,
dude,
that's easy work.
Just give him like 2 more years.
Boy, I mean, maybe if everybody in the UFC retires and he's the only one around, but
right, well, we'll see. We'll see the next Greg Hardy fight that comes.
Yeah, and I will be vocally against Greg Hardy.
So. Well, I am also vocally against him as a person. I don't want to be misconstrued here that I am like a huge Greg Hardy fan.
Personalities and real life aside, I think he's a horrible fighter. And I think he's literally just a hype train that they have built off of him being an NFL player.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like, that's his.
And I am on the train right now.
I'm not. But let's move on to Bryce Mitchell versus Andre Touchy-Feely.
Yeah, I like Bryce Mitchell a lot. I like as a wrestler, I am so hypocritical because I'll tell you I hate it when you get someone who takes someone down the whole time and doesn't do a whole lot, and that's exactly what Bryce Mitchell did. And I kind of loved it the whole time, though, because I do respect the amount of output, like the amount of energy he wastes taking a person down 8 times in one fight. With that said, he needs to be either vastly improve his striking, or I feel like he needs to get closer to getting submission attempts or potentially finishing matches when they're on the ground. Like, it seemed to me he'd get him on the ground and just slow everything down, win the round. But what happens if you can't take him down? Like that second round, he couldn't take down his opponent, Touchy-Feely, and then he lost the round by a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think I had an overinflated view of his submission ability after he had the twister submission, and then in his last fight when he had like 3 twisters locked in. Mm-hmm. And I just assumed that was kind of just like a gimmick and he was doing it because he could get it. And I assumed that he had a lot of other things in his toolbox as far as submissions go. It did not appear that way. It appears that he has a great knowledge of controlling somebody on the ground, but maybe not a great finishing submission arsenal. Mm-hmm. I assumed that was one of his many weapons, and it didn't really seem like that was the case.
I forget where they said they were saying he wrestles at one of the colleges.
Little Rock,
yeah. He'll go in there and practice those guys. I think he needs to go practice boxing and not wrestling.
I agree. I think he's got the wrestling down, especially in the lightweight division when there aren't really any wrestlers in the division. Like, he's already the best wrestler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he needs to. I don't know. I mean, he's very good, and it'll be fun to see. He's a bad matchup for a lot of people.
Yes.
But at some point, you're not going to be able to always get a takedown, and he's going to have a lot of problems when that happens.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people calling for him versus Adam Hall, who is probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the entirety of the UFC right now. Mm-hmm. But literally nowhere, like, has 0 striking, has 0 anything other than jiu-jitsu. And I disagree with that. I think Bryce Mitchell should stay as far away from guys that are proficient in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because that's where he's exceptionally strong. I think where he excels is getting guys into unfamiliar territories, and I don't think a fight with Hall right now does much for him.
No, besides proving that so say he wins, I'd be like, yeah, you're really good at on the ground. Like, nice.
Yeah, we already knew that,
Yeah, I don't know, but he's another fun character. Hopefully he fights again soon.
He said he broke his hand.
Oh, really?
He broke his hand in the first round. Oh. So he's going to be out for a while.
Well, maybe his striking wasn't that bad then, considering he's striking with a broken hand.
Yeah, true.
I guess the jury saw it in that one.
And last but not least, the most disappointing fight I've seen in a really long time. Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall. It was a horrible fight. Anderson Silva went out getting TKO'd. Uriah Hall only threw 11 punches in the second round, and Anderson Silva also only threw 11 punches in the second round. It is that traditional as Anderson Silva got older, instead of being supremely offensive, he just decides to wait and be strictly a counter striker, which has led to vastly disappointing fights in the latter part of his career. And this makes him 1-7 in his last 8.
Yep.
He needs to retire. Dana said that this would be absolutely his last fight in the UFC. Anderson Silva still has one fight on his contract with the UFC, though. But Anderson Silva was unwilling to admit that that was his last fight in the press conference. It's definitely his last fight in the UFC, but maybe elsewhere. But what Dana said that he may exercise is the fact that he's still under contract with the UFC. And so he can kind of prevent him from fighting again. But he was also like, Anderson is a grown man, and I'm not going to try to hurt Anderson Silva as far as his decisions from here. But he was like, I don't want him to fight ever again. He said, I made a bad decision letting him fight tonight.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. The whole thing was weird. It sucks that he still wants to fight.
Yeah.
You should feel for the guy, and that's what he loves is martial arts. Like, that's been his whole life, and he doesn't want to quit. But it's not like quitting playing baseball or something else. Like, you are getting hit and knocked out. Like, your brain is getting hurt every time you go out and fight.
Yeah. And it is very hard for me to consider Anderson Silva, at least talking about, recent topics and current events in the GOAT conversation, when he's popped for PEDs and ended his career 1-7 in his last 8. Like, people are hating on Khabib for leaving early. Like, what's the alternative? Like, you end up like Anderson Silva or BJ Penn. I think BJ Penn went out on 8 straight losses or 6 straight losses. Like, legends that had they quit when you logically should quit fighting, you go down in history as an absolute legend. But people that maybe have just picked up in UFC, like, have almost absolutely no respect for Anderson Silva or a guy like BJ Penn if they haven't taken the time to go back and actually watch some of those fights. And this is a hot take. To be perfectly honest, the guys that Anderson Silva was beating up were not top-tier fighters in today's terms.
No. And that's just where all sports, they pass you by. You can't.
Yeah.
For a person to be at the top of, especially like fighting for that long, even for as long as he was before he started going downhill, is already incredibly impressive. But eventually there's just these younger guys who are better, stronger, faster, smarter, have more training opportunities while they're young, and you can't keep up with that when you're going downhill.
Yeah. And, the reason why Anderson Silva, exploded so much on the scene originally was A, the level of the sport was not that high as far as competition. B, he was really the first dynamic striker that we had seen,
Right.
Since then, we've had many, many dynamic strikers that have also changed the game. He was just the first. Izzy comes to mind. Max Holloway comes to mind. Demetrius Johnson comes to mind as creative, dynamic strikers, but he was just a trailblazer. And somebody needed to do that, and that was certainly, a great place for him to fit in, but man, give it up. Give it up.
Hopefully this really is the end.
Yeah.
But that was an interesting pick you had last week too on him winning.
Yeah, I was really trying to ride the fact that he took around from Izzy. And
still think that was a respect thing.
He took around from Hall too. He won the first round.
Yeah, he did.
But just can't. He just can't.
Yep.
Can't string
I think that's all that needs to be said, and I think everyone agrees with that. Besides possibly Anderson Silva.
Yes.
We
all right.
Rock on to this week's fights.
Yeah, let's start with the fights on the main card, and then afterwards, let's talk into who we've studied in the undercard. Because I've just got a couple that I want to talk about for the main. I only have 2 fights on the main card that I really want to talk about, and then I want to delve deep into the research I've done.
Okay, we can still we'll do a quick run through of all the main card fights, but
okay. Yep.
there might be less to be said just for betting odds and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think the first fight we have is Claudia Gadela, and she's fighting Yan Zhaozhang.
Yep.
That's definitely wrong, but
no, I think that is one of the first names that you've pronounced right, and I think probably the toughest name that you've tackled.
I'm not going to say it again, so we're going to ride with that.
There we go.
Claudia she's 18-4, and she's a plus 110 underdog. It's a pretty close fight on paper. She's got a win most recently over Angela Hill, and she's on a 3-fight win streak. Yan is 12-1, minus 140 favorite. She also has a win over Angela Hill, and she actually hasn't lost since 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why she hasn't been more active necessarily, but her win also against Angela Hill was much more decisive than Claudia's was, and that's why I'm going to take the favorite Yan at minus 140. I think this will be I think she's going to put on a striking clinic here.
Yeah, really the only, kind of like you use, the only bar that I can measure these two on are their Angela Hill fights, and I think that one's pretty clear as far as who Claudia appears to have the edge.
And Claudia, people think that was stolen from Angela Hill, that win.
Yes. Yep.
And I believe it was something like Claudia hit Angela Hill like 70 times, and Yan landed like 150 strikes on Angela Hill. So just numbers, and this girl hasn't lost since 2010. Like,
yeah,
she's not going to lose now.
Yep.
Next we have Ian Heinich versus Brandon Allen. Really two really similar guys. Ian Heinich is 14-3. Brandon Allen is 15-3. It's pretty much a pick 'em fight. They're both at minus 110.
Yep.
Heinich has a KO over Gerald Meerschaert. That's his most significant win. He does have a loss.
Another guy that has a KO over Gerald Meerschaert.
Yeah, there's a several. And he lost to Derek Brunson. That's probably the toughest opponent he's ever fought. He's 2-2 in the UFC. Heinich is, and then Brandon Allen. He's a young kid. He's 24 years old. He's training out of Milwaukee. He's won his last 7. He also has a win over Kevin Holland, who we just were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the UFC, he's got, I believe, 4 wins in the UFC, 3 finishes, including a finish over Kevin Holland. I think these odds are way too close. I don't think this is a pick-em fight. I think Brandon Allen is a pretty easy pick here.
Yes.
I mean, kids won 7 in a row. A lot of times it seems like with MMA, sometimes it takes people a few fights to get going. It might take them 8 fights before they get submitted. People find something that they're not good at, and then they get better. But when you see a kid that's 15-3 with 7 in a row, he's figured some stuff out.
Yes. And
he's putting fights together.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of, I believe it was David Dvorak that I covered earlier. He was like 18-4 on a 14-fight win streak.
You see that. They'll be like 4-4 through 8, and then I feel like they either get it and you start winning and you're winning a lot of fights, or
you don't get it and you're
not in the UFC and I never talk about you.
Yep.
Okay, our third to last fight on the main card, we have Raoni Barcelos and Khalid Taha. Barcelos is 15-1. He's a minus 325 favorite. I believe that's the heaviest favorite on the entire card. He has a win over Said Nurmagomedov, and he's got 7 wins in a row, 4 in the UFC. His last 4 fights, 4 out of his last 5 fights are wins via finishes. Mm-hmm. He's a Portuguese national champ in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This guy is really well versed in all aspects of fighting. His striking appears to be really high level, and his jiu-jitsu obviously is top tier as well.
Yeah. Are all those finishes subs as well?
No, he has like 2 of them are KOs.
Wow. So
he is a very well-rounded fighter who could be someone definitely to keep an eye on. His opponent, Khalid, is 13-2. Like I said, he's a plus 250 underdog, and he's 2-1 in the UFC. None of the names he's fought are really notable. I don't think this is where he's going to turn it around. I think this is a good fight for Barcelos to get another finish and keep moving on up. We'll see. I don't know. The sky's the limit really for this guy. Haven't seen any holes in his game yet. Mm-hmm. And then we got in our co-main event, my enemy, just based on the pronunciation of his last name.
Here we go. Let's hear it.
Andre Arlovsky.
Yep.
Yeah. is
Got it.
fighting
Andre Arlovsky.
is fighting Tanner Bosser. Arlovsky is kind of he's been sliding for a while now.
Yeah, he's a former champ that also should quit. What I didn't research. What he's on a skid, right?
Since he lost in 2016 to Stipe, he's 3-9.
Oh,
with the most significant win there being over Ben Rothwell. He did actually, I believe he won his last fight over Philip Lins, which is
who is that?
I don't know. All I know is Tanner Bosser knocked him out in the first round of his fight against him.
Oh, yeah, I see that Bosser's a heavy favorite.
Yeah, he's minus 265 favorite. 3-1 in the UFC, 2 KOs. Would put money on a first round KO for Tanner Bosser.
Yeah, I am not going to argue with that one as much as my heart wants to see Arlovsky win and then retire. I don't think that's happening.
Hope he gets KO'd and I never have to say his name again.
There you go.
And then we got a pretty good main event, I think, this week.
Yeah, I am very excited for this main event.
Yeah, Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira, who
dare I say title eliminator?
It should be, but this is such a complicated division now with the recent news of Izzy going up to fight Jan in the next championship fight.
Yeah, I'll ask you this question. If Izzy beats Blachowicz, do you think he's going to defend the 205 belt?
Yeah, against John Jones. That is what is going to happen. I
think that's going to happen as well, but maybe not right after. Because, okay, so it's going to be early 2021, correct? That this is going to happen?
Yes.
Blachowicz.
And Adesanya.
Mm-hmm. And John Jones is not going to fight in the heavyweight division until mid-year at least, because Stipe Ngannou is probably going to happen early or late-ish, maybe like April of 2021, and then John Jones has the winner of that. So I think John Jones is tied up for a while. I think there's time for a 205 title defense should Izzy win or should Jan win. I think there's time enough for the winner of this fight to get the next shot at the belt.
I would maybe agree with that if Thiago Santos is the one who wins.
Yeah.
No part of me wants to see Izzy fight Glover Teixeira. I don't want to see that at all.
Yes, that's true.
Thiago Santos, he kind of, again, he's big, he's powerful. He could generate some excitement going into a fight.
Yeah, he is an absolute workhorse.
Yes.
Thiago Santos is that guy. I don't know why people just kind of forgot about him.
Well, his most recent loss was a split decision
to John Jones. John Jones had to be carried out of the cage.
Yeah. And this dude, like, Thiago Santos is just a monster. Like, he will take you down. He will fight you standing up. Like, he has no problem. He will fight you anywhere. He will fight you in a Walmart parking lot.
Abominated Jan Blachowicz when they fought.
Yeah.
He crushed it. Like,
yeah.
Like,
I would assume if he was fighting Jan right now for the belt, if Izzy wasn't moving up, I would assume he'd be the favorite. And how could he not be? He dominated him the first time.
Wholeheartedly.
With respect to Glover Teixeira, he is a plus 175 underdog. He's 31-7, which is a hell of an impressive career. Yeah. He's 41 years old, and he's on a winning streak right now. He just
three-fight win streak.
Yep, and just dismantled Anthony Smith a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But Thiago Santos is on another level. And again, you got an older guy. Glover Teixeira is still a good fighter, and he's really tough. But Thiago Santos, I think, is one of the best around in this division.
Yeah.
And he's 21-7 with 15 KOs. I mean,
yeah. And he has a really badass tattoo on his chest.
It's a big hammer.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm again gonna go with Thiago Santos, but I'm gonna say a second round KO.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Santos, and I'll say decision. I'll say unanimous decision. Just because Glover Teixeira not only is on a 3-fight win streak, but he's so durable. Like, that dude is like the poster child for just like a tough old man. Like, he's the striking version of Alexei Oleinik. Like
I like that guy.
Yeah, I know you like that guy.
But no, I still gonna go KO. I just think I think it could be a TKO where he catches him, drops him, and Glover Teixeira just doesn't have enough to protect himself. But yeah, I'm going Santos KO, Bosser KO, Barcelos KO. Last 3 fights, bombs.
Bombs. I don't think, for me, I don't think I would personally put any money down on this main card. I feel like all of the fights are pretty easy, heavily in the favorites category, unless they're pick'ems.
Yeah, the one fight I think Jan against Claudia. I think Jan's a good bet there. She's not a heavy favorite, and I think Brandon Allen as a
You're right. The Brandon Allen
favorite.
one
I
is
think
probably.
those two. I think Brandon Allen is a really safe bet,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I think those are great odds for him.
Otherwise,
you might want to bet. You actually may want to bet for a KO in those other fights to get better odds.
Yeah. I believe that there is a significant opportunity to kind of con the system based on my assessment of some of these undercard fights that I think the odds are a little lopsided. It was nice to have some feedback on the YouTube videos. Last week with my brother, I kind of just ran through the main card of this coming week, didn't talk about any undercard fighters. And somebody was like, I can't remember the name. I'm sorry if you listen this week, but I'm using your advice. You were like, hey man, I'm trying to like make my bets for this weekend. And you didn't cover any of the fights like you usually do. So I didn't know that anybody cared. So it's nice and reaffirming that, people are listening to our stuff. And I delved in and I think I have some insightful takes on the undercard. One that I know that you disagree with because we directly covered opposite people, but.
Burp, do you start with your other one, and then we'll go into the one where we covered the same fight?
All right, so I'm going to start going in on Ramiz Brahimaj. I butchered that name. He's a plus 140 underdog. He's a welterweight, and he is 8-2, making his UFC debut. And he is fighting Max Griffin, who is 3-6 in the UFC and 15-8 overall, with his sole win notably in the UFC over Mike Perry, but that was in like 2016 or 2017. I feel like although this is his UFC debut and there's not a lot of stuff out on him, 8-2 is a solid record, especially coming up through LFA. When you look, and it's not that I'm super high on Ramiz, it's that I'm really unimpressed with Max Griffin. He just lost a split decision to Cowboy Oliveira, who looked like dog crap against Shavkat. Is that his name from last week?
Yeah, who I think is a stud. Also,
I think he was a stud, but Cowboy Oliveira did not put up even a fight. Like
Oliveira missed weight by 2 pounds as well. Like he didn't care about that.
I was supremely unimpressed by Cowboy Oliveira, and Max Griffin is coming off of a loss to Cowboy Oliveira.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think you found a spot where you're not taking a little risk because it's a mystery with this guy coming in. Never fighting in the UFC, but he's not getting a top tier opponent, and you don't just get a UFC contract to be expected to lose to a guy who's 3-6. Like
exactly, I think there's two
contract because they see something in you, and
there's two ways to come in on your UFC debut, and I believe that it is either you are a stepping stone for somebody, you are a fight to tune somebody up, or you're getting a tune-up fight, and I believe that Max Griffin is that tune-up fight, but I think the odds makers really just dropped the ball on this one. I think I think that Brahimaj, however you say it, really, has some upside. I'm not saying that he's going to come in and be a real threat in the weight class, but I just think that he's going to beat Max Griffin. If I'm putting money down, I'm betting on Ramiz Brahimaj.
And I think before I wasn't in the last episode, but I'm pretty sure the last like 3 or 4 episodes before that, we hit on underdogs that we said we really felt confident in that did win.
Yeah.
And this is another one where I think this is a good, I think that's a good bet. I agree with you.
Yeah. And notably, so he's 8-2 and was 7-0 and then 7-1 and then 8-1 and then 8-2. So he's lost 2 of his last 3. But has not fought since March of 2019. So I take that as, he was undefeated, took a couple losses, now has taken his time. to either right the ship or continue. I think there's things to be said about taking a break, coming off of some of the first losses of your MMA career.
Yep, especially depending on how they happen and the magnitude of the situation.
Yeah,
somewhat.
And he's fighting a guy that's 3-6 in the UFC.
Yep, and I feel like you don't take a year off then debut in the UFC to finish sinking your ship. You're trying to right things. Like I would assume he's had a good training camp and is ready to put on a show.
Yep. All right.
You tell me about Marcos.
All right, so I am covering Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He's a heavyweight. He is a plus 225 dog, right? So if you're putting your money on this guy, which I don't bet on fights, but if I would be betting on this guy. He is fighting Cal's guy that he's going to cover here in a second, Alexander Romanov. And Marcos Rogerio de Lima is 17-6 with 12 KOs. So he is a knockout artist. He is a 10-fight UFC vet, and he is 6-4 in the UFC. Now, I believe that the UFC is planning on Marcos to be a stepping stone for Alexander Romanov. I truly believe that. I'm not going to comment on Alexander Romanov. I'll let you do that. Although I will say that he has had only one UFC fight. Romanov did. And I believe that they're setting him up to get crushed, but he's proven with a record of 6-4 in the UFC and climbing 2 times to actual real, not contender fights, but fighting legitimate heavyweights, both of which he has lost. He lost to Struve and somebody else. I can't remember who his other notable loss was, but he had won, lost to somebody, knocked him down. He won a couple other ones, got to Struve, lost, and then is also now coming off of a win. Not to say that Marcos is a legitimate contender at this weight, but I do think that he is not a guy that is necessarily a stepping stone, let alone a plus 225 stepping stone. I think maybe he wouldn't be favored in this, but it's hard not to take this guy at the odds that they gave, at the odds that they set.
Yeah, I disagree with you almost on everything you just said, but my reasons are Alexander Romanov is 12-0 with 12 finishes. I think the minus 280 favorite that he is excessive because he has not fought extremely tough competition up to this point. But
he's fought nobody.
Yeah, you're right.
Nobody.
I'm not impressed by a loss to Struve. That makes me think less of De Lima, but Alexander Romanov.
Stefan Struve beat Stipe.
Did you see Stefan Struve fight Tuivasa this weekend or 2 weekends ago?
I did. And he's not that good anymore, but...
No, and he only lost to him. That was the fight before that.
Yeah, okay.
You can't tell me. This is not... He didn't stick with someone who's Stipe.
Okay, but...
Alexander Romanov is an absolute monster who takes down everyone he fights and beats them up until they can't fight anymore.
Except for Marcos. He won't.
Oh, I was like, wait, did I miss something?
He won't beat Marcos.
He's going to put Marcos to sleep one way or the other. He is just an absolute monster. He is so good at takedowns. He's only okay on his feet. But Marcos, I don't think Marcos is going to be able to defend the takedowns against Alexander Romanov. He's super athletic, super strong. And when Alexander Romanov gets on top of people, he sits on their chest and hits them with both fists at the same time. And you can't do anything about that.
But Marcos has 12 KOs in his 16 wins. I'm sorry, his 17 wins. And
Romanov has
the death touch.
10 KOs and 2 submissions.
Yeah, but not in the UFC.
He's really good.
Yep, Marcos has many KOs in the UFC with his hands.
And he's been KO'd and submitted.
Yeah, but Romanov's not going to KO him.
Yes, he is.
If anything, Romanov is going to, he might TKO him.
It's going to be, he won't KO. I agree with that. He won't KO him. He's not going to sleep him. But Romanov's tough. And this is a fight where De Lima's going to get smashed.
I agree.
I can't. You agree now?
No, I don't agree. You added this get smashed as I was agreeing with you, I do think that Alexander Romanov should be favored in this fight, but I think the odds are idiotic. I think that the odds makers really messed up, and if I were a betting man, I would capitalize on that. You get nothing for betting on Alexander Romanov.
I wouldn't. I'm not.
You would not touch that bet, and you don't have much to lose if you bet on Marcos.
This reminds me of like this is similar to when Sean O'Malley fought Chito Vera, where you thought O'Malley was a huge favorite, and you thought that O'Malley probably would deal with him, but you knew that Chito Vera represented some danger just from the unknown.
Yeah.
And this again is we're getting a green guy fighting a veteran, and there is some unknown, and I think that's why I can see why, from a betting perspective, throwing a little bit on De Lima isn't a terrible idea.
Yeah. Maybe parlay a De Lima finish and Ramiz Brahimaj decision, and
yeah, I'm sure the KO is even a little bit better odds than just the win too.
Yeah, I would bet on a KO. That's the only way that De Lima is putting Romanov away.
Romanov has the one thing in his UFC debut that really impressed me is all his other fights that only lasted the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know, with a guy like him, a big, powerful guy who's getting all these TKOs, taking people down, I didn't know how he would handle going into a second round or third round of a fight.
Yeah.
But he held it up fine and got the takedown in the second round and submitted his opponent. So
yeah, it is also of note that Alexander Romanov is bigger than De Lima.
Alexander Romanov is huge.
Yeah. De Lima only weighs 250 pounds.
Romanov
probably cuts to heavyweight.
Yeah, he's on a treadmill somewhere with sweats on right now. But yeah, I'm excited about that one now. So
yeah,
this should be. I think this will end up being a good card with some really good fights, and I'm predicting a bunch of KOs at the back end.
Yeah, I think this is a sleeper card. I think this is going to be one that is going to be fun to watch. I really with a very exciting main event. I think, to be honest, I'm looking more forward to the undercard than I am the actual main card.
Yeah, but I'm excited.
I mean, I'm really excited for the main event, but outside, I like the fights that we've broken down better than any of the other fights on the main card.
Yeah, it should be awesome.
Yeah. All right, so thank you guys for tuning in and watching and listening wherever you get podcasts. If you're still with us, if you want to hit the like and subscribe button, that really helps us out. Leave your comments. We love hearing your feedback. Hopefully, we've adjusted our episode a little bit this week from last week, and based on your guys' feedback. There's also a lot of girls that are apparently waiting for my love in the comments. So keep doing that.
I just keep giving out our email to these websites. It says there's girls in our area, and I just throw out the Casual Combat email, and that could be part of it.
Well, that would make sense. All right, guys.
I want to add one more thing. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I think I'm going to try to set this up this week. We'll throw it on our Twitter, but we're going to try to start a fantasy MMA league on Tapology, where you pick the fights every week and you'll get points, and you can compare it against like the other people in the league. So you'll see me, Nelson, whoever else wants to get in, and maybe we'll do the first season of our MMA league will be like 5 or 10 weeks. We'll decide on a length, and we'll cover it in the show who's winning in the league.
That'll be awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I was 10 for 12 last week, by the way.
Ooh, that's pretty nice. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in, and that's all for this week.